The concerns follow the City of Cape Town's approval of the local spatial development framework for the area. Officials of the city plan were to guide the development of the area on a local level. Residents also claim that they haven't been appropriately consulted for the move to work in the community. To talk more about this is Deputy Mayor of Cape Town and MMC of Spatial Planning and Environment, Eddie Andrews. Very good evening to you, Mr. Andrews. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening.
So the residents of the Bo-Kaap say it's gentrification of the area. You call it spatial planning. Does redevelopment not also involve some revitalization? I just want to understand where the divergence is and why it's important.
I think it's really very important, this particular document being the local spatial development framework. It's also equally important to understand the context of this document. Council has what we call a metropolitan spatial development framework, also known as our MSDF. Then we have a district spatial development framework, and we have 8 districts in the city of Cape Town. And then also just to offer the necessary certainty to all stakeholders, whether it be residential, industrial or commercial, we also have a local spatial development framework. This is important because it offers everyone the necessary certainty with regards to the planning framework. So whenever there's an application received in a particular area, in this context of the Bo-Kaap, that framework would be consulted, and our local district office would then apply their mind, on the application received, and then of course recommend accordingly as per what is asked of them. And I think that is really important to be mindful of, but equally important that these documents are not just prescribed to communities. This LSDFs, as we know them, it's a process where there are extensive public participatory processes conducted, and it's a developmental vision that was co-designed with the community members themselves, and that is why even when it comes to not just Bo-Kaap but also District 6, we as a city of Cape Town, we tread extremely carefully in those communities because we understand the historical and cultural significance of an area such as Bo-Kaap, and even more so the fact that it's in close proximity to,
so
to
let
the
me just stop
town.
you right there so I can get a word in edgewise, because we've spoken to some of these community representatives. The spokesperson of Al Jamaa, Shamila Sali, for instance, some of the things that you've said, has said that it's actually shocking that over 522 pages were provided, yet the actual public participation and the comments of the residents and those impacted was not attached to documents that were handed in for the finalization of the LSDF. What is your response to this? Because they say the LSDF was actually sneaked in while public participation was in progress.
No, I think this particular matter, I personally responded to in council. It was not sneaked in. This process was conducted or commenced as far back as 2021. During COVID, it was suspended, and then the primary focus was the municipal spatial development framework, as it's the overarching document in the city of Cape Town. What has happened in the meeting referred to was just before the end of the May council meeting, where the document was attached to council's agenda, as it was throughout the participatory processes, but there was an issue with the link to access the documents, and that was brought to council's attention. And at that meeting, I asked council to defer the matter, and so that the colleagues can have the link and to download the documents. And then, of course, council then convened again towards the end of May, and the link has been sent timelessly to all stakeholders. Currently, there's no participatory process underway with regards to the Bo-Kaap LSDF. Where the issues have been conflated is that there's a separate process with regards to the Strand Quarry and the Foreshore Gateway Precinct program, that those consultative engagements are currently underway. And of course, the Strand Quarry being in Boekap and Buitengracht Street, also on the periphery of Boekap, those conversations are currently underway.
So
and
you
that's
say
why
the
the issues have been conflated.
You say the matter has been conflated, but to the people who are affected by this, it feels like their concerns have not been heard, particularly when it comes to Boekap plans. They feel that the affected living and heritage and culture of the community is what is at stake, that it's a very sensitive matter that you have not paid heed to. So do you as a deputy mayor, your team, not bear some responsibility to ensure that you bring everybody along, that these documents are not conflated, the implementation thereof is done so with the endorsement of the communities that you are saying that you're doing spatial planning on?
That's precisely the process that we've embarked on, to an extent that we've extended our participatory process by an additional 45 days. And I think if one reflects on the document, and if the vision statement has been read, the Boekap, it says the following: Boekap is a vibrant area with strong history, which makes it a treasured place in the city. And of course, this document and the components thereof frame the living heritage, as I've spoken about that earlier on. And this is not what has been prescribed, but reflective of what was submitted during the public participatory processes as well. And we recognize that there's a particular narrative that the documents have been sneaked in, and that the city is not engaging. But we question that. There was, even as far back as October, there was an entire day that the entire professional team and our city officials walked the streets of Boekap and inviting comments, in addition to the a series of public engagements that we've had. And now also with the other process that is now conflated, the approved document, we also now will add to the next engagement, which will be, I think it is this week at the 14th of June, we will now have a line item. We will talk about just clarifying the misconceptions that there may be. There are attendance registers of all organizations who have attended the meetings as well. So we question the narrative that's peddled that there's been no consultation.
Okay, so Mr. Andrews,
again,
we are running out of time.
Carefully.
We are running out of time. You make the point that your documentation says you do recognize the historical, cultural heritage value of these places. But it's one thing to put it on paper. It's about the implementation, the impact of those that you're dealing with, because doing something else behind closed doors, this is what the community is objecting to. How you remedy the situation. You have another meeting, you say, we hear you, but how do you make them, how do they feel made heard? How do they, absorb that what you're saying is actually what you're going to do?
Well, again, I think we currently have a participatory process. We will include in those engagements comments around the LSDF. We also, at the very same council meeting, I made the point that there's a heritage overlay zone, which means that the heritage aspect legislatively is protected. You cannot go and develop at will. There are levers within the local sphere of government that we've legislated, and that's one aspect how we are able to offer a sense of comfort to Boekap, saying these are the levers that are available, and we've included your community as an overlay zone, and a special zoning aspects now apply to that particular. So to answer your question, we'll continue engaging. We whatever we have an opportunity, we're more than happy to present to any stakeholder grouping, and that we've offered as well on the LSDF, and just continue engaging. I think that's the only way that any misconceptions will be responded to.
Deputy Mayor of Cape Town and MMC of Spatial Planning and Environment, Eddie Andrews, thank you very much.